Hi, it's Miss Wright, and I'm back with The Thief of Always. We're on chapter 25, the next to last chapter, and it's called The Vortex. Now, when I think of the vortex, I might think of a couple things. One, I think of the roller coaster at Kings Island with all its turns and loops and uh, different upside down elements. And I also think of a whirlwind. Okay. If you think about when you let the water out of your bathtub, a vortex is formed and it creates a whirlpool type setting where the water is going around and around and around. I think that we are going to see that a vortex here means that spinning motion. There's a reason why that roller coaster at Kings Island is called the vortex because it has so many spins and loops that go along with it. So if we think back to last chapter, the vortex or whirlpool was the lake. So I think once again that lake is going to play an important part here. Now, last time at the end, I showed you what Mr. Hood looked like. Here's another picture of that to refresh your mind so that you can be reminded. Remember, he had been turned, or pieces of the house had been put together to create him. So we are going to look and see what he was exactly made of today. His eyes were made of broken mirrors, and his face of stone. He had a mane of splinters and limbs of timber. He had shattered slates for teeth and rusty screws for fingernails, and a cloak of rotted drapes that hid the darkness of his heart from sight. So, thief, he said, ignoring Rictus's painful struggles, you see me as the man I was, or rather a copy of that man. Is it what you expected? Yes, Harvey said. It's exactly what I expected. Oh, you're dirt and muck and bits and pieces. You're nothing, Harvey said. Nothing, am I? Said Hood. Nothing. Ha! I'll show you, thief. I'll show you what I am. Let me kill him for you, master, Rictus managed to gasp. You needeth not bother. I'll I'll do it. You brought him here, Hood said, turning his splintered eyes to his servant. You're to blame. He's just a boy. I can deal with him. Just let me do it. Let me. Before Rictus could finish, Hood took hold of the servant's head and with one short motion simply twisted it off. A yellowish cloud of foul-smelling air rose from the servant's neck, and Rictus, the last of Hood's children, perished in an instant. Hood let the head go from his hand, and it flew up like in the air like an unknotted balloon, giving off a farting sputter as it looped the loop and finally fell empty to the ground. Hood casually dropped the body, which had shrunk to nothing, and turned his mirror glazed back upon Harvey. Now, thief, he said, you will see power. His mane of splinters stood on ends, as though every one of them were ready to pierce Harvey's heart. His hands grew wide as a tunnel, and a blast of sour, icy air rose from his belly. Come closer, he roared, opening his arms. The rag that clung there bellowed and spread like the wings of some ancient vampire, a vampire that had dined on the blood of a pterodactyl and a tyrannosaurus. Come, he said again, or must I come for you? Harvey didn't waste a breath with a reply. He needed every gasp of air he had if he was going to outpace this horror. Not even certain what direction he was taking, he turned on his heels and ran as another blast of soul-freezing air struck him. The ground was treacherous, slippery, and sewered with rubble. He f- he fell within 6 strides and glanced back to see Hood descending upon him with a vengeful shriek. He hauled himself to his feet, and Hood's rusted nails missed him by a whisker's inch, and had taken 3 stumbling strides from Hood's shadow when he heard Lulu call his name. He veered in the direction of her voice, but Hood caught him by the collar of his jacket. "Gotcha, little thief!" he roared, dragging Harvey back into his splintery embrace. Before Hood could catch better hold, however, Harvey threw back his arms and pitched himself forward. Off came his jacket, and he made a third dash for freedom, his eyes fixed on Lily now, out who was beckoning towards him. She was standing on the edge of the lake. He realized, perched inches from the splintery waters. Surely she didn't imagine they could escape into the wet lake. The vortex could tear them limb from limb. "We can't," he yelled to Lulu. "We must," she called back. "It's the only way." He was he was within 3 strides of her now. He could see her bare feet uh, slithering and sliding on the slimy rock as she fought to keep her balance. He reached out for her, determined to snatch her from her perch before she fell, but her eyes weren't on him. They were on the monster at his back. "Lulu!" he yelled at her. "Don't look!" But her gaze was fixed upon Hood, her mouth agape, and Harvey couldn't help but glance back to see what fascinated her so. Hood's pursuit had thrown his coat of rags into disarray, and there was something between its folds, she saw, darker than any night sky or lightless cellar. What was it? The essence of his magic, perhaps, guarded guarding his loveless heart? "Do you give up?" Hood said, driving Harvey back into the rocks beside Lulu. "Surely you would not choose the vortex over me." "Go," Harvey muttered to Lulu, his gaze still fixed upon the mystery beneath Hood's coat. He felt her hand grasp his for a moment. "It's the only way," she said. Then her fingers were gone, and he was standing on the rocks alone. "If you choose the flood, you will die horribly," Hood said. "It will spin you apart, whereas he extended an inviting hand to Harvey, stepping up onto the rocks as he did so. "I offer you an easy death, rocked to sleep on the bed of illusions." He made a smile, and it was the foulest sight that Harvey had ever seen. "Choose," he said. Out of the corner of his eyes, Harvey glimpsed Lulu. She had not fled, as he had thought. She had simply gone to find a weapon, and she had one, a piece of timber dragged out of the rubble. It would be a precious little use against Hood's enormous, enormous body. Harvey knew, but he was glad that he was not alone in these last moments. He looked up at Hood's face. "Maybe I should sleep," he said. The vampire king smiled. "Wise little thief," he replied, opening his arms to invite the boy into his shadows. Harvey took a step over the rocks towards Hood, raising his hands as he did so. His face was reflecting in the splintered mirror of the vampire's eyes, 2 thieves in one head. "Sleep," said Hood. But Harvey had no intention of sleeping yet. Before Hood could stop him, he grabbed hold of the creature's coat and pulled. The scraps came away with a wet tearing sound, and Hood let out a howl of rage as he was uncovered. There was no great enchantment at his heart. No fact, no, in fact, there was no heart at all. There was only a void, neither cold nor hot, living nor dead, made of a mystery, not made of a mystery, but of nothingness. The illusionist's illusion. Furious at this revelation, Hood let out another roar of rage and reached down to reclaim the rags from his coat in, uh, in the thief's hand. Harvey took a quick step backwards, however, avoiding the fingers by a whisker. Hood came raging after him, his soul squeaking on the rock, leaving Harvey with no choice but to retreat another step until he had nowhere to go but in the flood. Again, Hood snatched at the rags, and would have had both cloak and thief in one fatal grasp had Lulu not ran at him from behind, swinging the timber like a baseball bat. She struck the back of Hood's knee so hard her weapon shattered, and the impact pitched her to the ground. The blow was not without effect, however. It threw Hood off balance, and he flailed wildly, the thunder of the vortex shaking the rock on which he and Harvey were perched on, and threatened to toss them both into the storm. Even now, Hood was determined to claim his rags back now from Harvey and conceal the void of him. "Give me my coat, thief!" he hollered. "It's all yours," Harvey yelled, and tossed the stolen rags towards the waters. Hood lunged after them, and as he did so, Harvey flung himself back towards solid ground. He heard Hood shriek behind him and turned to see the Vampire King, the rags in his fist, pitch head first into the frenzied water. The uh, the he- uh, the mangled head surfaced. His mangled head surfaced a moment later. Hood struck out for the banks, but strong as he was, the vortex was stronger. It swept him away from the rocks, drawing him towards the center, where the waters were spiraling down into the earth. In terror, he started to plead for assistance, his pitiful bargains only audible when the whirlpool carried him to the banks where Harvey and Lulu now stood. "Thief!" he yelled. "Help me in! I'll give you the world for ever and ever!" Then the force of the waters began to rip at his makeshift body, tearing out his nails and rattling out his teeth, washing away his mane of splinters, and shaking his limbs apart at the joints, reduced to uh, a living litter a, a, to living litter. He was drawn into the white waters of the whirlpool's heart, and shrieking with rage, went where all evil must go at last, into nothingness. On the shores, Harvey put his arms around Lulu, laughing and sobbing at the same time. "We did it," he said. "Did what?" said the voice at their backs, and they looked around to see Wendell, wondering towards him, clueless as ever. Every bit of clothing that he had found in the rubble was either too large or too small. What are you doing? What's been going on? What are you doing? He wanted to know. What are you laughing at? What are you crying for? He looked beyond Harvey and Lulu at this in time just to see the last fragments of Hood's body disappear into a fading howl. What was that? He demanded. Harvey wiped the tears from his cheeks and got to his feet at last. He had a purpose for Wendell's perplexing reply. Who cares? Harvey said. Well, that was the end of chapter 25. We have one more chapter. Tomorrow will be our last chapter that we have. It's called Living Proof. So here's our last chapter intro. You'll see that posted tomorrow morning. It's a rather long chapter, but I think that you all will enjoy how our author, Clyde Barker, wraps up this book. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you later.